Blessings, everybody. This is Dale. Thank you so much for joining with me today on the Word Podcast. We are in the 78th Psalm, and we've read and looked at the first 8 verses a couple of times, as a matter of fact. And so I want to pick up again at verse 5, just remind us of the context, and then we'll press on. This psalm is really, really, really important. Of course, everything in the Word is important, right? But this is really striking me for such a time as we live today. So verse 5 says this: He, and this speaking of the Most High God, He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which He commanded our fathers to teach to their children. And so what it's saying, and this verses, I think 5, 6, 7, 8 are all one sentence. I want to interrupt the sentence here. God gave forth commandments, and the commandments were for the fathers, and then the fathers were to teach this to their children. Why? Verse 6. That the next generation might know them, that the next generation might know the commandments of the Lord, the law of the Lord, what the Lord wants. The children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children. So the idea being that the Lord gave the commandments, gave the law to a generation of people. They were to tell the next generation, who would tell the next generation, who would tell the next generation, and onward and onward. Verse 7. So that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. So there was a purpose for this, not just where you would know commandments and things that you do right and not do wrong, tick off the boxes, et cetera, et cetera. No, these things would lead us to where we would set our hope in God. That's what the King James ESV say. New American Standard Lexham say that they might set their confidence in God. Well, either one of those is a good translation of that word, okay? That our hope is in God, our confidence is in God, and that by communicating the commandments of the Lord from generation to generation to generation, that they would know this. But he continues, so that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. By keeping His commandments, it develops the ability to have confidence in God, to set our hopes in God, because day by day, thought by thought, breath by breath, we are abiding in the Lord and keeping the commandments of the Lord. That's how we, as new covenant believers, keep the commandments of the Lord, by abiding in Him and doing as He says. Now, verse 8, and that they should not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation whose heart was not steadfast, whose spirit was not faithful to God. So the psalmist is going to build on this right here and give more insight into it. He's saying that God gave the commandments. He gave the commandments via angels to Moses. That's what Hebrews tells us, to Moses. And Moses gave them the law. And so he's speaking of the fathers that came before Moses, that these generations would not be like them, that they wouldn't be stubborn. They wouldn't be rebellious. Okay? They wouldn't be a generation whose heart was steadfast. But what you find out is that even after they received the law, guess what? They were still stubborn. They were still rebellious. Their heart was not steadfast, and whose spirit was not faithful to God. Their spirit wasn't faithful to God. So therefore, most of those that came out of Egypt died in the wilderness because of their lack of belief, their lack of faith. Now, verse 9, the Ephraimites, armed with the bow, turned back on the day of battle. Like, well, what is this all about? Well, the Ephraimites, that's referring to the northern kingdom, okay, the northern tribes of Israel. And what he's saying is they were armed. There was a time when they were armed with archers, which means they were heavily armed with bows, and yet they were turned away in battle. They were defeated in battle. Well, why is that? Verse 10, they did not keep God's covenant, but refused to walk according to His law. And so the ESV and Lexham out there put a period, okay? And that's fine. The other two just sort of keep flowing with semicolons. But look what they did. They didn't keep the covenant of God. God had made a covenant with them. God had given them commandments, instruction, and told them what they should do and how to do it, etc. And they didn't keep the covenant. How did they not keep the covenant? They refused to walk in his law. Doesn't say they couldn't walk in God's law. No. If the Lord tells us to do something, he empowers us to be able to do that something. He doesn't tell us to do something that is impossible, particularly in him. Okay? It may be impossible in the flesh, but in him we can do it. But they refused to walk. There's a difference right there, a very sharp distinction. They just flat out refused. Out of that, watch what happens, verse 11. They forgot his works and the wonders that he had shown them. So they forget the deeds, they forget the miracles, that's what the works are. They forget these things, the miraculous things that God had done and shown them, they forget it. Why is that? Well, because they refused to walk according to his law, because they did not keep the covenant of God. And now the psalmist is going to give us some things that he's particularly thinking about. Verse 12, in the sight of their fathers, he performed wonders in the land of Egypt, in the fields of Zoan. And so what he's talking about the plagues, the 10 plagues, when God was calling his people out of Egypt and all that was involved with that. He's given a quick recap of that. So he's saying, you know what? He wrought these tremendous wonders, and the fathers saw them, but they forgot them. And this field in the lands of Zoan, you think, well, where is Zoan? Zoan, the word literally means place of departure. Place of departure. And I love what this one, the B2B defined it this way. It says, an ancient city of Lower Egypt called Tanis by the Greeks. Now, when I said Tanis, there's some of y'all went, wait. Oh, yeah, that was one of the major locations that was spoken of in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember that? That Tanis had been swept away by a sandstorm? Well, God had actually promised he was going to burn it with fire. Either way you go, it's not there now. But the psalmist here, in Psalm 78, is saying he performed these wonders. Verse 13, he divided the sea and let them pass through it, and made the waters stand like a heap. 14, in the daytime he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a fiery light. He split rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink abundantly as from the deep. He made streams come out of the rock and caused water to flow down like rivers. So he gave just a really quick synopsis of all that happened when God did these things to bring them out. And then verse 17, yet they sinned still more against him, rebelling against the Most High in the desert. They tested God in their heart by demanding the food they craved. They spoke against God, saying, can God spread a table in the wilderness? He struck the rock so that water gushed out and streams overflowed. Can he also give bread or provide meat for his people? So this is what the people were saying. Verse 21. Last verse for that, 21 and 22. Therefore, when the Lord heard, he was full of wrath. A fire was kindled against Jacob. His anger rose against Israel because they did not believe in God and did not trust his saving power. Oh, wow. Yeah, my time's up right now, but we'll talk a little more about that later. But just think about that. Here's the great synopsis of God bringing his people out of Egypt. And the reason these things happened to them is because they did not believe God and they did not trust his saving power, which begs the question for each one of us personally. Do we believe in God and do we trust his saving power? Well, my time's up. Again, I'm Dale. I'll see y'all next episode. Goodbye.